Money Roots is made possible by the support of our sponsor, Rooted Planning Group. Are you ready to take control of your financial future? Look no further than Rooted Planning Group, your trusted partner in financial well-being. At www.rootedpg.com, you'll discover a wealth of resources and expertise to help you thrive financially. Rooted Planning Group specializes in personalized financial planning, investment management, and retirement strategies. They understand that every financial journey is unique, and they're here to guide you every step of the way. With a team of experienced advisors, Rooted Planning Group is committed to helping you cultivate a secure and prosperous future. Visit www.rootedpg.com today to learn more about how Rooted Planning Group can help you grow your money roots. Welcome to Money Roots, the podcast where personal finance gets personal. Each week, Amy and her guests dig deep into the world of finance, making it more approachable and understandable for everyone, no matter where you are on your financial journey. From savings and investments to budgeting and planning, we'll bring you practical advice, inspiring stories, and expert insights. We believe that everyone has the potential to grow a healthy financial future, and we're here to help you nurture it. So whether you're a financial guru or just starting to plant the seeds of your financial knowledge, this is the place for you. Get ready to uncover the tools and strategies that can help you thrive financially. So without further ado, let's dive into today's episode of Money Roots.
Welcome to this week's episode of Money Roots. This is Kate Welker with you again this month. We're continuing our discussion about stress and anxiety around money, and I am so excited to welcome to the podcast today Dr. Laura Carapella. I am going to do a brief introduction, then I will let Laura jump in and say hi, and then we'll go from there. So Laura earned her doctorate degree at Columbia University. She's achieved tenure from 2 different colleges in New York State, teaching health behavior and human dynamics. Over the past 25 years, she has assisted clients and offered over 200 leadership workshops, retreats, keynotes. She is a phenomenal public speaker. You can look at her website, which is carapellaconsulting.com, if you would like to learn more about her public speaking. Throughout her career as a teacher, professor, diversity consultant, and entrepreneur, Laura has nurtured her passion for helping people feel seen, heard, understood. She excels at fostering authenticity and guiding individuals through periods of transition. Her most recent transition being from more of a professor into the public speaking sector. And on the personal side, Laura is a member of the LGBTQ plus community. She's a mother of 2 energetic and growing boys, the spouse of an amazing, empathetic chiropractor, and a dog mom to their mischievous golden and a giant couch cuddling mastiff. And I always love hearing adventures about the family. So welcome, Laura. I hope I didn't go too in depth in that bio, but I just think it's so impressive and extensive, and I wanted to set the stage for our conversation.
Oh, thanks, Kate. It's wonderful to be here.
Yeah, absolutely. So as I prefaced, we have been discussing stress and anxiety around money this month, and a lot of clients come to us and they are really stressed or anxious when they talk about money. They might say they are, they might not. We see it in their reactions. There's a lot of, often shame around their past, which we try to overcome. And at the same time, stress levels go up around this. So I recently heard Laura give a keynote address on, or a session on, anxiety and stress and the effect of gratitude. And I thought it would be great tying into the topic this month to come in and talk. So I was really curious, in your experience and in the research you've done, how are people rating their overall stress level? And maybe how has that changed in recent years?
I love this question because this is something that has been near and dear to my heart since I started teaching. So for the last 25 years, working with different age groups, I started out teaching in elementary school and middle school and high school before I became a professor. So I've had the luxury, I should say, of teaching at every different age group. And each class that I teach, I always ask the same question to rate your anxiety 1 to 10, 10 being the highest. And I would say 25 years ago, I would get just a handful of people that were up in the 10 range. And as you can imagine, as the years went on, the amount of people that were in the 10 range just increased. So about 15 years ago, I would get about half the population. And when I ended teaching just about 2 years ago as a professor, I had almost the entire class at a 9 or a 10 and them asking me if they could pick 11 or 15. And it was really concerning. And because I noticed the drastic increase, and we all did, all professors noticed the increase, all teachers noticed the increase, that anxiety was playing such a significant role in our students' lives, I decided this has got to be a piece of research that I focus on.
Mm-hmm. No, that's really incredible. And hearing how high those levels went from people that are like, I'm off the chart in how I rate myself. And so much of our levels are our perception of what's going on. So I can see why you were concerned. And I would say we've seen that with clients, especially over the past 4 years, just that level of their perception of their stress increasing quite a bit. So as I mentioned, I recently heard you speak and learn more about some of the research you've done on the effect of gratitude or anxiety and stress. And I was hoping you could share a little more background into what you just said about the concern you saw and what led you into this research, and a little more about your findings.
Sure. This is an exciting topic for me, so I absolutely love it. When we really started diving into anxiety, we looked at what are people already doing? And we already know that the levels are climbing. So whatever people are already doing is not effective enough. It may be effective on an individual level for individual people, but as a collective whole, something's not working out. And in fact, something is working in the reverse direction. Something is creating more of a problem within our societies. So my brain is a system brain. I see everything from a systematic standpoint. And I started breaking down our cultural system, what we do, how we function, and said, what is it within our systems that can shift and can change? And so to do that, a lot of times I like to start with what the problem is. And if I can't find a solution to the problem, I often try to make the problem the solution. So what we do is like dive in, and the further we dove into anxiety, the more we started recognizing the benefits of gratitude and the inverse relationship that our society has to gratitude was matching the levels of increase that we had with anxiety. Now, that's not a cause and effect. We know that with research, this isn't a cause and effect relationship, but it was an interesting piece of information. So I started looking further into that to see, well, what exactly does gratitude do chemically? What does it do to the brain? And there's a lot more research out now than when I started doing this, but we do know that it rewires your brain. So we know that it rewires more neural pathways to your bliss center. We know that it enhances dopamine and serotonin, which are those neurotransmitters that help us feel satisfied, help us want to repeat an action because we feel pleasure from it. It reduces fear and anxiety by regulating our stress hormones, and it does foster cognitive restructuring. We've had MRI images. We've located what's called anxiety cells that are specific cells that actually grow in your brain and in your body because of anxiety. So there's a lot happening in relationship to the positive research that we have found around gratitude.
That is so interesting. And the anxiety cells were something when you mentioned that, studying more myself on the tie-in between behavioral finance, like how we behave in money, learning more about neural pathways. I had not heard of those. It makes a ton of sense that as we're fostering different things in our body, how they grow. So I found that so intriguing. So can you share more about what you found as people started, maybe even on their own perception, as they started expressing gratitude and maybe in a different or more expansive ways than they had been used to?
Sure. So what I decided to do with my study was I decided to take 30 days, and I used about 72 students in the study, or I should say 72 students participated in the study. And what we asked them to do was we asked them to provide something that I identify as proactive gratitude. It's not exactly a term, but it's a term we coined for this study. And proactive gratitude, the way we defined it, is it's an action taken to provoke regular thankful patterns throughout each day beyond one's current boundaries. The key being beyond one's current boundaries. In other words, once you create a set of boundaries of what you give gratitude to, like someone gave me a present, I give a thank you card. Someone held the door open for me, I say thank you. When someone does something for me, those are within your boundaries. So proactive gratitude are beyond your boundaries. And the second piece of the definition is that it includes a shift in moments of judgment to moments of gratitude. So proactive gratitude has those two elements. It's A, beyond your current boundaries, and B, it replaces judgment in the moment of the judgment. So once our participants were fully aware of what was proactive gratitude, we requested that they gave proactive gratitude 3 times during their day. With a few folks were, what if I'm not frustrated 3 times during the day? Or what if I don't see a judgment in myself 3 times during the day? Which we anticipated that question. So with a few individuals who felt like they weren't going to judge people 3 times within their day or have a judgment in general, we would say, if you don't have any point in time where you can move from judgment to gratitude, then just choose 3 random times in your day. So that was the one exception that we made. And the idea behind it was just the 3 steps. Identify what frustrates you or a judgment that you made. Identify what you could appreciate in that situation with that person or with what's happening in that moment. And then the third was the most important piece, and it's to authentically believe in what you are appreciating. So we're not blowing smoke in our own face, and we're not using toxic positivity. We're not just trying to be a positive person in a negative situation, and to really make a distinction between those. So for example, when I presented to a room full of teachers and we shared ideas in the classroom of what we could do to really initiate more proactive gratitude, there was a very clear distinction and misunderstanding between compliments and gratitude. So understanding that a compliment to someone is judgment, right? So when we give judgment to people, even if it's a positive judgment, all judgments change the wiring of our brain. And that wiring of our brain seems to be related to the amount of anxiety that we are creating. So when we see social media, every piece of social media has a like or a dislike or an opportunity to comment. And we go through our entire lives deciding whether we like something or don't like something. We put it on the right and the wrong list, the yes, and the good and the bad list. By doing this constant action, we have created a system of self that believes we have to always be this right side, this good side. And we put so much pressure on ourselves because we keep putting everything on a side. And that seems to be related to the anxiety. When we didn't have social media, there was a lot less things to judge. So even if we had a good side, a bad side, maybe it came from our social environments, our school or our religion, but it wasn't happening in our face every second of our lives, right? So this increase in this influx of constantly judging something as good or bad, even if you judge it as good all day long, you are still judging it, right? So that act of judging is what we wanted to try to rewire. So the key was to catch yourself judging. And that was the biggest point of the study. It was a point of the study that most of the participants didn't even recognize they were doing. So the key point was recognize a judgment. And then afterwards, we would evaluate them both quantitatively and qualitatively. Quantitatively, we did a self-evaluation of anxiety before and a self-evaluation of anxiety after the study. And we saw a tremendous improvement in anxiety for those people who rated themselves high in anxiety. We didn't see much movement at all for those who rated themselves low in anxiety, which makes sense. And then the other piece was storytelling. Tell us a story. And some of the stories were just remarkable. I mean, I was just blown away at 30 days of this and the results that we got with some of those stories. So yeah, it was very, very interesting.
Yeah, I think the 30 days piece is really what hit me too, that it was a measurable time period and it was fairly short. I mean, it's hard doing anything for 30 days. Like any of us who try to exercise consistently, is hard, but such impacts you saw in a short period of time, and like rethink and being able to rethink and reframe that. And this was, again, me learning from you a little bit. I have thought, but not as deeply, about even compliments are a form of judgment.
Mhm.
And that whole, I mean, we all know there's issues with social media. That's a whole nother multiple podcast we could probably do. But our perception of that constant judgment, good or bad, and even not commenting or liking something is a form of judgment. Like, did I just pass on something? So being able to really reframe, rewire brains a little bit. So I wondered if you could give a couple examples of ways that people chose to express this gratitude that maybe were unusual, and then we can flip it around and think about some application for our listeners that they could use this just in their lives about general anxiety. And then I'm trying to think through some things we can relate it back to money as well.
Sure, that sounds great. I would love to read a story that was written in our qualitative research. So this one came from one of the students, and I just, this one hit me so hard in just how effective it was. So it starts out like this. I was in a fight with my partner, and I was frustrated that I couldn't prove that I was right about what we were disagreeing on. Later in the day, I checked my phone and got one of those gratitude quotes to remind me to give gratitude 3 times outside my current boundaries. So I noticed that the person in the car in front of me didn't pull up enough when I was at a gas station to reach the gas pump. And I was about to get frustrated, and I recognized that this was a moment that I could use in the research study. So I stopped and I thought about how waiting for the pump allowed me to think about my day rather than just move quickly and just keep on going. I decided, what could I be grateful for? And I was grateful for the person forcing me to stop and just reflect. So while I was reflecting, I realized I remembered to get a birthday card. So I was thankful that they gave me the opportunity to remember this birthday card. And the second opportunity in the day, I recognized that I was complaining about how long it took for me to find the perfect birthday card. And I felt like there was just that nothing on the rack was good enough. I caught myself in that moment and I said, okay, how can I use this complaint, turn it into gratitude for the studies? So I grabbed a blank card and I decided to write a poem to my dad about how he helped me go through a very difficult time in my life. And I know it was something that my dad will keep forever, and he'll read it whenever he's feeling lonely. And I just feel so grateful for the moment that changed. My last opportunity of gratitude in that day was me getting frustrated that I agreed to do this study. This is why it was my favorite one. They were just so honest. I already had so much work to do. I didn't want to have something more on my plate. So then I decided that I would use that frustration as my third gratitude opportunity. I shifted my thoughts to appreciating how much better that I felt right now, and how I actually no longer cared about proving that I was right to my partner and that I needed to be right in that argument. I just wanted to invite them over and tell them how much I love them and just hold them on the couch. And this story, I mean, this is the kind of stuff that I feel like I went through myself in doing this work. And it was so interesting to see and hear. But I mean, my favorite line was just like, I'm so frustrated that I had to do this work.
I know. I love that line particularly. And I also, in that story, love how much it changed their whole day and their whole outlook. So instead of that, I mean, we've all had that. We have a bad morning and we just like go into our day and we're seeing everything through this negative lens and just getting more frustrated and I was thinking of myself, like, I already had this, I pull up to a gas pump, like, oh my gosh, I can't get my gas. I've got to wait. And that moment just changed her perspective. And I could tell as well as this individual had the practice of it already leading into that moment, like because they had been listening and practicing. Maybe it was early, but I kind of feeling like it got a little bit easier in ways to like remap the way you think and your brain's working. So it just, I love that story as well for many things as that I heard.
Yeah, I remember hearing comments when they were just speaking freely after the study. And there were so many comments like, I just couldn't believe that it worked. They just kept saying that. I just couldn't believe that it worked. And in their mind, this concept of worked wasn't, to me, it wasn't a reflection of the anxiety. I think it was a reflection of they couldn't believe their mind could be changed on something that they felt so strongly about.
Mm-hmm.
And a lot of students shared with me even years later that it wasn't so much that they felt like they needed to think of something positive to do. It was that they realized they needed to take that moment and figure out how to not judge in that moment, but to use the time productively. So they saw proactive gratitude as switching from judgment to productivity, which I thought was incredibly helpful in
Mm-hmm.
understanding all of this, because I think the folks that didn't do this as effectively used a positive moment. So they went from a negative to a positive thought. And the folks that had the best impact went from judgment to productivity. And then this story, you can see the 3 productivity. The first one was, I need to buy a card.
Mm-hmm.
This is how I'm going to be more productive in my life. Oh, I need to do a blank card instead of just something that's written on it. This is more productive in my life. And then I need to invite my partner over and show him. And then they even saw the effects of it. They saw like,
Mm-hmm.
I felt more loving all day long. I saw things that I didn't always see. I appreciated everything around me. And even before this study, like, I would argue the greatest gift in life is the ability to appreciate. And I emphasize the word ability, because I don't think most people have the ability until they actually start to practice it, just like any other skill in life. And then it starts to become automatic.
Mm-hmm.
And so it's, for me, and I think the highest form of appreciation, of course, is love, right?
Mm-hmm.
So when everybody thinks, oh, the greatest gift is love, well, if we look at it from a system standpoint, right,
Yeah,
that's appreciating. And that starts with yourself, right?
absolutely. I love it. I'm sitting here, just my brain spinning as I did last time I heard you talk about this. And I think this is literally life changing to people. I feel like that's a phrase we can throw out, but just being able to do that and enable them to express that. So you had mentioned, kind of going beyond the everyday gratitude you give, but the phrase that stood out to me was authentically believing in what you are appreciating, because I think so often, in tying it back to some of the financial things that I'll talk to clients about, it is easy to throw those things back where someone's frustrated. And I don't know why this example popped in my head, but so many things in our world that changed in 2020. There were a lot of people very resentful of their jobs because of the fact that other people didn't have to work. It was almost this like, they're home, they get to watch Netflix and be with their kids. And there was some resentment about it. So trying to throw back the old, well, be thankful you have a job, feels very almost insulting in a way, because you're not appreciating that. So being able to really reformat those responses to be more encouraging of, maybe there's something about your job you appreciate, or it's allowing you to do something that these other people, sure, on the surface, it looks great that they're getting to watch the, big name shows at the moment that are out, but they may, well, and I know those same people were dealing with incredible anxiety and fear because they didn't know if they would have a job in 3 and 4 months. So yeah, just trying to reframe that, where it might be a very like trite response, into something deeper and forming that. Let's push it and really think about, what are we grateful about in this situation that I'm perceiving as negative.
Yes, Kate, I think what you're saying is incredibly important. And just kind of going back to that point of making a very clear distinction between making a positive statement and making a statement about productivity in the way that the students described it. I think, as you mentioned, when we try to take a statement that feels negative and then we throw an at least at it, at least, we're really minimizing the impact, right? So I think, and we're being dismissive of emotions, and we can do that to ourselves. We can be very dismissive of our own emotions. We can dismiss our own impact, and that's not going to help our brain. That's not going to help rewiring. That's not going to help anything. So I think making a very clear distinction about gratitude not being this, let's just paint everything with butterflies and rainbows, right? There's such a distinction of that. And let's look at, how is what I'm doing more of an opportunity in my life, right? So when it comes to finances, I mean, I've had a very specific conversation this morning, even with my spouse, where they're having a lot of anxiety about the future, very much like you just mentioned, with how we are handling finances right now, and this idea that the way we're handling them right now is not going to work in the long run. Like, we need to do more, and this anxiety is building up. And, my brain is wired very differently than my spouse's brain, but I'm also aware of the limitations. So when we talk about this research, there are chemical limitations. There are folks that are wired differently, where gratitude can only help so much with my spouse. Where for me, it can move mountains. So I do realize that there are limitations. This isn't something that is going to be like the, fix it pill. But with someone like my spouse who really needs certainty, like on every level, and I understand that they need certainty, I can also say, well, look at this. Whenever we are stressed about finances, our whole organization of our life gets better. Every time we're comfortable with finances, we let everything go. So I'm like, we eat better. We organize our vacations better. We plan better whenever we have to focus more on our finances. That to me is an opportunity. That's not me blowing rainbows and butterflies at the situation, saying, just think positively. So I'm taking something and saying, this is what we do better. We are actually our better version of ourselves when we are a little bit pinched. And she looked at me and she was like, you're right.
I love it. I love that response because,
she added in, now can you take over, So.
Yeah. Well, and on the finance side, I do think we call this sometimes lifestyle creep, where things get a little bit easier. So you let it loosen a little bit, and then it's, but I'm just thinking of being, thankful you've gotten to this point, or thankful that other opportunities have come up in your life that are causing you to rethink and an opportunity to get back to, as you said, the best versions of yourself. Doing that. And, I think practicing, one thing I'm picking up is kind of a few final things is practicing this. So just being very aware, looking for opportunities, which I imagine are going to be very difficult at first to do. But the more that you can just start establishing a habit of it, or forcing yourself to do it, that over time it becomes a little bit more intuitive to just see the world this way or take those actions in that moment.
I agree. I think one of the best advice I've received, and I don't remember where I got it, which is awful, so I wish I could remember the person and credit them, is they said, whatever happens, no matter what it is, say to yourself, everything goes my way, right? And then authentically believe it to be true, and then see how whatever is happening in front of you is going your way. So let me give you an example. The other day, I drink a protein shake every day. It's wonderful. It's a chocolate protein shake. I can't go on my day without it. It's the thing I do. But I decided that I would incorporate exercise with it. So I would shake it 100 times. And I decided, it's really helping my abs, but I need to work on this hump I got going on the back of my neck. So I decided, nobody does this. I know. My spouse says nobody does that. I take the shaker over the back of my head to stretch out my triceps and my neck, and I shake 100 times over the top of my head. You probably know where this is going. Okay. So of course, the other thing that is incredibly interesting in this story is that my spouse, we have an ongoing joke about chocolate spilling all over the counters in our kitchen, because they have a tendency to be slightly, they're going to kill me for saying this word, clumsy. And so we joke about it all the time. And in fact, even in their proposal to me, they created this incredible rap song that included how they spill chocolate all over the counter. So we joke about it. Every time it happens, we just laugh. We're like, there's another one, there's another one. So as you can imagine, you probably know where this is going. I'm shaking my shake, and the thing pops open. And I don't realize it, so I'm still shaking all over. I feel it going down the back of my neck. And I'm like, I dropped to my knees in laughter. Like, I could not stop laughing. I was laughing for two reasons. I was laughing because I so deserve this karma in life for laughing at my spouse about every incident and bringing up the fact that this always happens to them and not me.
Mm-hmm.
And the fact that nobody shakes their shake over their head. Like, nobody does that. So this had to happen at some point. Like, the universe was waiting for this moment, and there it was. And now I have one of the funniest, best memories that I instantly will think about it, and I bust out laughing. The amount of endorphins, serotonin, and dopamine that just release when I just randomly think of this story and how funny it is. I just think, what an amazing opportunity that I have now. And, it could have just been a regular old day with my 100 shakes and just unremarkable. Yeah. But now I have this story and I have this laughter.
Yeah. Well, and I was just thinking that's brilliant. Like, your idea was not even thinking about the potential for it to open and explode, because I am the clumsy spouse in my relationship, and that would be something I would do. So, and you got to love those stories, because you will. Now, I could even see in your face as you just started thinking about it. Yeah, you were smiling and starting to crack up.
I couldn't wait to tell my spouse, and I was like, "You are stuck with the imagination and not having the visual. Maybe your imagination will be even better, but." Hilarious, completely.
No, that's wonderful. Well, thank you, Laura, so much. Like I said, when I was thinking about this month, and then I heard your session, it just was coming together all in my brain. I found this information so intriguing, so I was like, I got to let more people know about it. And gratitude, there's so many studies on the other effects, but seeing it tied directly to our stress and anxiety, and there's many, many examples we could think about in your finances to flip, but I'll leave that on our listeners to just the next time you're in a moment to try to go deeper and think about something to be thankful for in that moment, or express some gratitude about the situation you're going through. Practice it, incorporate it in your life. And just move forward. Is there anything you'd like to add before we're done?
Yeah, I would just say, whenever you're thinking about gratitude, think about the opportunity it presents rather than just the positivity of it all. And I think that will start to rewire, the way that you see the world. And I hope it does. And even if you have the limitations to all of this, I hope that it works in your favor. And I just want to thank you for having me on, and the gifts that I experienced just knowing you have been wonderful.
Well, thank you. And if anyone is interested in hearing more about Laura or her speaking opportunities, be sure to check out her website, which is carapellaconsulting.com. Thank you.
All right. Thanks, Kate. Bye-bye.
You've been listening to Money Roots, your go-to podcast for making personal finance accessible and approachable. Thanks for joining us today. Amy and her guests have enjoyed guiding you through the roots of your financial journey. Remember, whether you're planting new seeds of financial knowledge or nurturing the growth of your existing financial plans, Money Roots is here to support you every step of the way. Be sure to follow them on Facebook, X, LinkedIn, and Instagram for more resources. And, of course, subscribe to Money Roots wherever you get your podcasts so you never miss an episode. A big thank you to the sponsor, Rooted Planning Group, for making this show possible. At Rooted Planning Group, they're committed to helping you cultivate a thriving financial future. Until next time, keep growing your money roots.